Hi, guys, and welcome to another World of Strange. Indeed, yes. This time we are talking about alien abduction and all things involved in that phenomena, as they say. And to join me on this excursion, we have three beautiful human beings, not extraterrestrials, to talk about this. And so let's introduce them. We have Jake Wardle.
Hello.
We have Lisa Coronado.
Hi, guys.
And we have the one and only John Pirruccello.
Aren't they the one and only also? Hello.
And the one and only is Jake and Lisa. Yes. We are all one and only, aren't we, really? There's only one of a kind of us all. Yeah, that's right.
Well, that's the lie we've been fed anyway.
You're all unique in your own way, as they say, yeah. So, let's talk about alien abduction. Well, we will in a minute, but first of all, we've got John here to give you one of these.
Strange facts.
People used to say prunes instead of cheese when having their picture taken. That's strange. That
There
is
you go.
strange. Whether it's a fact or not, I don't know, but that is strange.
It makes a kissy face. Like it's not. It makes a weird face. That's weird.
You know what? That's a good point, Lisa, because I think it's sort of like, I think that's what duck face is when people do selfies. They're saying prunes, aren't they?
Yeah, they're totally saying prunes.
That's a great point.
It said used to, so there's no reference to what time period.
Attaboy, Jake. Let's get right into this. Let's uncover this.
We need to do some private investigations.
From any time since the 1800s.
Oh my God! I'm gonna start saying prunes. That's so.
Well, back when they were chiseling into rock for caves.
And they probably found it on a monolith there, as a hieroglyph or whatever, and it actually said the quote in the rock. Yeah.
You know, next time you should take a picture. Just say it to throw everyone off.
Yeah.
What?
Just get it going. Get it going for the new millennium.
Yeah.
Bring it back.
That would be good, actually, if you just suddenly had everyone in a like big group shot, and you said, "Everyone ready? Prunes."
Prunes.
And everyone would look at each other and go, "What the hell's he talking about?" Yeah.
Oh God! It's gonna make a funny photo. It'll make a funny
Yeah, especially if they're not expecting it.
photo.
Okay, well, it's Lisa, please, with the first of our stories about a very famous case of Mr. Travis Walton.
The Travis Walton abduction is one of the most controversial cases in ufology. Ufology. Wait a minute. Pause. How do I say that? Ufology? I don't know how to say UFO.
Ufology?
Ufology, I think it is.
So I was right. Okay. I'll redo that.
Is it?
Okay. The Travis Walton abduction is one of the most controversial cases of ufology, yet one of the most compelling. The events of Walton's abduction began on November 5th, 1975, in the Arizona Apache Sitgreaves National Forest. Walton was one of a seven-man crew that was clearing trees on a government contract. After the end of the workday, all of the crew jumped into foreman Mike Rogers' pickup truck and began their trip home. As they drove, they were shocked to see by the side of the road a luminous object shaped like a flattened disc. Travis, still young and fearless, was enthralled by the object's presence and left the truck to get a better look, against the better wishes of his crewmates. As he gazed up at the wonder of the object, a blue beam hit him, throwing him to the earth. Creating fear in the six other men, they roared away in the truck for a distance, but then, realizing they had left Travis behind and he might need help, they turned the truck around and headed back to find him. Walton was gone. As rumors ran rampant and theories were discussed back and forth, 5 days after his disappearance, Travis Walton returned. Travis stated, "Consciousness returned to me on the night I awoke to find myself on the cold pavement west of Heber, Arizona. I was lying on my stomach, my head on my right forearm. Cold air brought me instantly awake. He was rescued from a small filling station, hungry, thirsty, dirty, weak, and feeble. He was taken for a medical examination. Now that some questions had been answered, another was created. Where had Walton been for the last 5 days? Travis would later tell investigators that the very last thing he could recall was the feeling of being thrown backward into the forest. After that, nothing. Nothing, that is, until he awoke frozen in pain and thirsty. Finally, he could make out an image of some kind of light, and then realized he was on a table, like an examining table in a hospital. Walton thought at first he had been found by the crew and taken to the hospital. This assumption was far from the truth. He is lying on a table, but it was a table in a strange room. Finally, able to clear his vision, he would be utterly shocked to see a horrible creature. 3 horrible beings were in the room with him, looking at him. He tried to lunge at one and push it away. When he did, the creature went flying across the room. He would see several different types of aliens during his time aboard what must have been the flying object that had blown the blue beam at him in the forest. Travis would be subjected to numerous medical procedures during his stay on the UFO. That's all she wrote.
Yes.
I want to start playing the X-Files theme tune while you're reading that story. Soundtrack for that.
That was made into a film, by the way. His story called Fire in the Sky.
Oh yeah, I've seen that.
With J.B. Sweeney playing the role of Travis Walton in it.
That's right.
And Robert Patrick was his brother or his co-partner in the logging team.
Yeah, it was in like was it the 90s? In the 90s, I think?
Yeah, mid-90s, I think. Yeah, 94, 95, something like that. Yeah.
What happened to J.B. Sweeney? That guy's a really good actor.
He was a very fine actor. Yeah, I wondered that too, John, actually.
I'm looking at it right now.
Yeah.
Look it up. And also the other thing that strikes me is like, so his friends just bailed.
Right.
They just bailed on him, and then they're like running like in a panic. They're like, oh, maybe we should stay together. Maybe we care about him.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
That's the thing. They fled in fear that when they saw him like being thrown back. They thought, at that moment that he was dead. He was a goner.
I see.
They panicked. They panicked. They sped off quick. I think they got about a mile down the road or something, and
right.
And the driver, who was the character that Robert Patrick played in the film,
right,
ground the vehicle to the halt and had second thoughts and said, "Look, we've got to go back. There's every chance he could be alive. We've got to go back and help him." And a lot of the crew were reluctant to do that, of course. But anyway, it turns out that they did all go back. But in the film, they were kind of like they were going, "Sod this, we're not getting in the truck." So there were some changes to the narrative, but they did go back. But then, and when they got there, he vanished. He wasn't there.
And they all knew, right? They all would agree, probably, or at least close, as to where he had landed, and that,
pretty much. I think it was about a 20-foot drop or something. He went back about 20 feet. So they had a fairly accurate idea of where he would have landed. And they did get a search party out and combed that area, and there was no sign of him at all. And then they went back in the daytime and did it all again, and still couldn't find him. And then when is the next time they see him? 5 days later.
Where is that they see him 5 days later? He just sort of shows up. He was
several miles from the area, on the side of a road.
So like he when he wake, after the table and in his mind or whatever, he all of a sudden is like by a side of a road, probably knows where he is because it's in the area.
Yeah.
And then just starts walking home or whatever.
Yeah, and he found a payphone and he called someone to collect him. But apparently he was in a real bad shape. He was in real bad shape. You can imagine 5 days without, he was dehydrated and everything, and confused.
Okay, so I know. So the cynic in me, or whatever you want to call it, says really he had complete control over, what is like. Let's say he wanted to when they ran away. If he wanted to perpetrate something, he could then leave, go away for 5 days, and then show up again, right? So there's no real My phone is screwing up. Hold on.
Accountability. Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Just like in terms of like if we were gonna pull off something, he would have complete. There's no point of reference other than his, as to what happened. What is going on with my phone? I'm so sorry. My phone is going crazy. Hey, anyway, so you know what I'm saying? Like, I hate to be a party pooper, but like there's that.
There is that. Yeah, we have to look at. You have to explore every kind of avenue of this. But one thing's for certain, that the him and the team have never ever swayed from their story in all those years.
Right, but what I'm saying is like the team leaves, and he leaves, right? Like when they leave, he heads off into the woods or whatever, and goes and hides. When they come back, he's gone. So there's nothing for them to stray from there. And then 5 days later, he comes walking back into town. So in other words, from the point of view of the team, why would the story change? I mean, Anyway.
Yeah, that's true.
I'm a terrible.
No, it's okay. I left off the conclusion part, which said, although many theories have been put forth to explain the Walton abduction as something other than what it was, none of the alleged scenarios are consistent with the facts of the case. So it sounds like lots of people have tried to disprove it, but it never adds up.
All right, well then I'm wrong. It was an alien.
I mean, it was the 70s. Who the hell knows?
They were all high on coke and
super high.
Yeah.
They were smelling that. They must have been having too much pitch gum or something in the forest or something. Yeah.
or some acid.
Or they're sniffing the pine trees or something. Yeah. But yeah, that was that case, and that was, as I say, a very famous one. Because it has endured all these years and still fascinates people. And still comes up with new theories as well and stuff every now and again. And because they went in there sometime afterwards with Geiger counters in that area where the ship was meant to be, hovering above the trees, and they found some very strange, weird anomalies with the trees, the way some were growing and some weren't. There was all sorts of weird radiation readings and stuff.
So it was radioactive.
Yeah, the area was still, parts of it were radioactive.
That's what I'm interested in. Like, I like that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I agree. That's if you go out there with a Geiger counter or whatever, I mean, that's sort of evidence, right? That's factual. Like, explain that. I'm with you.
Why is there a random pocket of radiation in that particular area?
Yeah, like look into that and keep open all the possibilities. I love. You ever read Freakonomics? That's that they sort of like things sort of present as one way, and then they show you how it can be different. Anyway, shall I go?
It's a fascinating one, and as I say, it's a really fascinating story. If you would look into it beyond the movie, I mean, because obviously with movies, when they have to give it a dramatic edge and they have to change certain things and make it more edgy than it was and all that, so there were some things in that film that Travis wasn't happy about. It wasn't reflecting what really happened. But it's still a good movie. But if you see him talking about it, it's really, really interesting.
Well, it's always that way, isn't it? I mean, when Hollywood gets a hold of something, I mean, they almost have to make it more interesting. I mean, that's almost the nature of filmmaking, right? Is to cut out the uninteresting parts, right?
It's like one particular thing when he was on board the ship and he was being experimented on. In the movie, he explained that he felt as if he was being suffocated. In the movie, they changed that to this kind of like membrane went over him and suffocated him, blocked his nose and mouth like a sheet. And that didn't happen at all in his reality. He just felt suffocated.
Right.
So again, they kind of like
literally, basically.
Yeah, they put this thing over him and made him panic with this membrane covering his face. But John, it's you, sir, next with one of the earlier abduction cases, which actually became famous and which kind of opened up the door to this phenomenon.
It's a world of strange.
The Hills were an interracial couple. Barney, a 39-year-old black man, worked for the Postal Service, and Betty, a 41-year-old white woman, was a supervisor for the Child Welfare Department. Because of Barney's ulcer problems, the two had embarked on a vacation into Canada. On September 19th, they began their journey back home. At about 10 p.m., Barney, who was driving, saw a star which seemed to move erratically. He told Betty about it, and they both kept tabs on it as they drove along. At least the Hills were not seeing things. They were trying to put the incident behind them. But soon Betty began to have nightmares. In her dreams, she would see her and her husband being physically forced into some type of craft. Before long, two writers heard about the Hills' story and contacted them. The Hills, with the aid of the writers, compiled a time chart of the events of September 19th. There could be no doubt that the couple had lost about 2 hours of time somewhere along the way. As the news of the UFO sighting became more commonplace, the Hills were forced to hide from reporters as much as possible. Because of the missing time element and the desire to know what happened, if anything had happened, during the time, they decided to contact a psychiatrist. They decided on Boston psychiatrist and neurologist Dr. Benjamin Simon, well known in his field. He would come to play an important role in the Hills abduction story. Regressive hypnosis. The suggestion for treatment was regressive hypnosis, which could hopefully unlock memories of the 2 missing hours of time. His session began with Betty, and soon Barney followed. After 6 months of treatment, it was Simon's opinion that the Hills had been abducted and taken aboard an unknown craft. Regressive hypnosis, a controversial treatment, is often used to unlock lost memories. It has been used in a number of other alien abduction cases, including the Buff Ledge abduction and the Allagash abductions.
Okay, is everyone here?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, John seems to have cut out there. I think.
Out.
Oh, he
Yeah.
muted himself.
Yeah.
John, you've muted yourself.
Actually, I think, from what I remember from when sending that, I think that was the last part of it, actually.
Bald-headed aliens.
Oh.
During intensive regression sessions, Hills would describe their captors as bald-headed alien beings about 5 foot tall, with grayish skin, pear-shaped heads, and slanting cat-like eyes. This description would very much become described. The description very much described what would become known as the Greys, now a standard description for the small beings with large heads, small mouths, and little or no ears, and hairless. Also, details were released about the actual procedures performed on the Hills. Both physical and mental experiments were conducted. Samples were taken of their skin, hair, and nails. Betty had gynecological testing, and Barney reluctantly revealed that sperm samples were taken from him. The Betty and Barney case is still studied and discussed today. It is the alien abduction case to which all others are compared and judged. So there you go.
Whoa. What year was that?
60, wait a minute. When was that?
61.
61, I think, right? Yeah, 61. September 61.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
How about that? An interracial couple in 1961. Oh, that's not what we're wowing about? All right. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the first part, yeah.
Part.
You know. But then they were abducted by aliens on top of it, you know, so yeah. That's double whammy.
3 years. That's 3 years before the Civil Rights Act.
Oh, yeah. So what do you guys think of that one? What do you guys think of this case? Because this kind of like opened up the floodgates for this sort of thing.
Physically forced onto the ship. Is that the classic abduction beam, or did the aliens get out and grab them? That's the way it was described. That was the
the way. That's right, Jake. The way it was described, they just kind of walked up to the car and said, "Let's go," and then who knows what happened after that?
Because normally you hear it's like an abduction beam, because that's what you said, but physically forced. is
Just get in the car. Just get in the car.
Yeah.
Yeah, just get in the craft. Get in the craft.
Right.
Yeah, I believe that at that point, obviously, that point, it wasn't like the when you hear these classic, classic abductions is where they float up into the craft, isn't it, or something, with a beam. But this was the craft had landed, I believe, and they were basically escorted into the ship,
Yeah, I mean, once again, I guess it's my day today to be the I don't know what you call that, like I'm finding the hole in it. The skeptic. Thank you, Lisa. Yeah. If only you could hang around and be my dictionary for me.
Sure.
I would sound much less stupid. Yeah, the skeptic is that a lot of this hinges on that regressive therapy, right? That regressive memory therapy or whatever, which is controversial. I mean, it's because people are suggestible, and so anyway, I'm just saying I'm skeptical because of that. I wasn't there. I haven't read all of the notes from the doctor and Dr. Benjamin. Was that his name? Dr. Benjamin Simon. Yeah. That regression thing is controversial. That's all I'm saying.
Well, and especially because they could have talked with each other and planted ideas in each other's heads, and then that's what came out in the therapy. Whereas the other one with the, being able to actually get scientific tools out there and getting readings of the radiation, like that just seems to have a little more merit to me.
Yeah, this one's more just like word of mouth, basically, who's recalling memories, which might not be accurate.
Had there been
and the record, by the way, once again, my skeptic, if I would to be really, it would make me more comfortable if we had readings of that area before these readings were taken,
Right. Had there been is that the first time anybody had ever talked about or written a physical description of the aliens?
It sounds like it, doesn't it?
It's interesting because it was the first, because it was such a high-profile case. I suppose unique, indeed, just with the fact that it was an interracial couple as well. That kind of probably pushed forward in the headlines. But it was the first time that it was described in such a high, in such depth in the media about something like that, and it gave rise to the classic grey alien look that we hear about ever since. With the small and the big head and the slanty eyes and so on. The dark almond eyes and everything. The classic alien look came from that. Yeah.
You type in alien and that emoticon comes up.
That's right, and it sort of started from that, really. Yeah,
I think I may have talked about this on the show before, but it's not, if you were to imagine, if one were to imagine, all human beings eventually sort of, and it seems like it's where we have to be moving, that there would be no sort of separation of races or whatever in the future. If evolutionarily, if we all kind of became one thing, if over time we sort of evolved into, you could imagine that look, that gray alien look might be somewhere we would sort of end up, both skin tonally and the shape of the head, I mean, if whatever, smarter people with bigger head, you know what I'm saying? So I have had the thought that that's what aliens are, that they're us, from the future or something,
That's kind of cool, or even interdimensional, another dimension.
Yeah.
Evolved into a different sort of form.
Yeah, that was another theory that's been going around more recently, Lisa, about the interdimensional thing, because it comes back to the fact that people are saying, look, first of all, if there are aliens out there and they are thousands of light years from us or whatever they are, why would they come visit us for a start? Why are they fascinated in Earth? And secondly, what kind of technology are they going to have to traverse those light years to reach us, you know. And they were saying that, you know, the other case scenario could possibly be that they are more closer to home than we think, and therefore they have a power where they can just do interdimensional jumps, and just some people have said they just walk through walls, you know.
Yeah, it's like Buckaroo Banzai. I mean, you know, or you know, that idea of, I mean, Lisa, I agree. I mean, that's not even as far-fetched, right? The idea that there's different dimensions, and that, you know, that we're all existing in the same area at the same time, just vibrating differently, and therefore, you know, native to whatever vibration that is.
Yep, I find that stuff so fascinating.
I do too. Yeah, I wouldn't doubt that. So
it's similar with parallel universes as well. That fascinates me as well. Like there's multiple versions of us coexisting out there.
Alternate universes and parallel universes. Yeah, I absolutely love all stuff to do with that. Fascinating.
Yeah. Well, that was the end of you know, at the end of 6 Feet Under, which was a great show by Alan Ball here back in the whatever that was, the 90s, and frankly, it's, you know, what Lynch explored, right, in season 3. I mean, that's I buy that.
The first thing that came into my head when I saw it.
Yeah.
Ooh, if you like that stuff, if you haven't seen the show The OA, it's so good, and it explores a lot of those themes.
Also, the whole theme of parallel universes and alternate universes, that feeds into time travel as well.
Yeah,
because there is the theory.
Oh yeah, there you go.
Between parallel universes, rather than operating on a linear fashion, due to the
the linear concept of time. I've never been quite settled with it. You know.
Yeah, because there's too many paradoxes. That's why.
Yep.
Whereas the alternate parallel universe theory that works around a lot of the paradoxes. But I think that's for another episode of World of Strange.
Yes.
The whole subject of it. So
I would agree on that. Yeah, that would be an interesting one. That would be really, really interesting. Yeah.
Well, it looks like Jake's he's an executive producer now, and the two put together a show.
Anyway.
Strange facts.
A flock of ravens is called an unkindness.
Well, that sounds really sad.
I don't know. I had no idea. So we get a murder of crows and an unkindness of ravens.
They're not very kind when they're in a flock.
No.
They get pretty snappy.
Murderous, even.
Neither are a flock of seagulls. They could be right buggers. Yeah.
What a band.
Yeah, they were a band. That's right. Yeah, I used to like some of their songs. Flock of Seagulls. Yeah.
Kidding. So funny. All right, I have to go. I have to get ready to stream.
Okay, Lisa. Thank you so much for joining us.
See you again, Lisa.
Thanks, guys. I'll catch you on the next one.
Yeah, brilliant. Take care, Lisa.
Bye. Have a good
Bye. And it's over to Jake now with his story about Whitley Strieber.
Okay, so this is the Whitley Strieber story. Whitley Strieber is one of the most well-known UFO researchers in the area of alien abduction and alien implants. His well-known book, Communion, is a UFO classic. It was also made into a movie by the same name. In upstate New York, over the 1985 Christmas holidays, Strieber was staying in his isolated cabin with his wife and son. At this time, Strieber was already a well-known writer. He had become somewhat suspect of potential intruders, and had recently installed a high-tech alarm system in the cabin. At approximately 11 p.m. on the 26th of December, he activated the system, and the family retired for the night. After a couple of hours, he was awakened by an unusual sound. He felt that the security of his cabin had been breached. He was soon shocked to see a creature in his bedroom. After this, the next thing he knew, he was sitting in the woods which surrounded his cabin. His memories of what had occurred were fragmented. Eventually, to re-establish memories of the night and understand what had really happened, he would undergo regressive hypnosis by Dr. Donald F. Klein. The hypnotic regression would uncover many of the details of his experience. He recalled that he had been floated out of his bedroom and into a waiting UFO. He would see 4 different types of alien beings. One small robot type of being. Secondly, a short, stocky type, and the third was very slender and weak-looking. It had mesmerizing black eyes that slanted, and the last being had black button eyes. He was subjected to medical testing by these aliens. One of these was the insertion of a needle into his brain, and another involved an object being inserted into his rectum. The beings took a blood sample from him by making an incision in his finger. The recounting of the most bizarre facts caused Dr. Klein to diagnose Strieber with temporal lobe epilepsy. This condition can cause one to have hallucinations. Strieber did not accept the diagnosis and recounted his abduction as a real event. He would eventually establish a foundation as a support group for alien abductees.
Whitley Strieber, yes, and the movie version, playing the part of Whitley Strieber in the movie Communion, was Christopher Walken. Because Strieber was very straight-laced, very middle class, and stuff. Walken seems to be a little bit more left field to me.
Did you see that movie with Brendan Fraser where they were in a bunker in the 50s? They went under and they thought that Brendan Fraser grew up thinking that the world had been a nuclear explosion had blown up the world, and when he emerged, 30 years later or 40 years later or something like that, he was sort of surprised to find that it was all still there and everything was different. And he was anyway, Walken played the father in that, and he was very straight-laced and very, almost like 50s normal, right? Like father best kind of normal. And also, don't forget, Walken was a song and dance man. He's on Broadway before he ever.
That's right, he was. Yeah.
Before he ever played these weirdos. I mean, people have asked him like, "Why do you play all these weirdos?" And he's like, "I don't know. It's just what happened." He's just a really great actor. I guess that's why. Maybe if I sounded all defensive, it's sort of like I'm sort of saying, "Well, Walken is like a great actor, and great actors can surprise you."
True. I mean, it's probably a bit glib of me to say that, and as an actor, you can't play any role, and that, as I wasn't trying to suggest that he was too good for it or whatever.
Walken is my father, Frank, okay? I'll just come out and say it. You've insulted my family, and I don't know how we're going to get back from this. He's my father, and I'm very insulted by what you would say about Christopher Walken. Everybody's got a bad Christopher Walken.
But what's interesting, though, is that he is, as always, very engaging on screen. There's no doubt about that. And
maybe that's why they cast him.
And he is in Communion too. He's very engaging on screen. He's very, he's always got a presence to him. It's just, I don't know. Perhaps I really do not know what I'm talking about at this point. Yeah. So I'll shut up now.
Back to the story itself. It's going back to what John was saying earlier about the treatments, the regressive hypnosis treatments and everything, and whether that creates a bias with memory and that kind of thing.
It really does seem like when that's your one linchpin, is the regressive treatment that the whole thing becomes sort of suspect when that's all you have. And in fact, in this one, the difference is, right, the doctor's actually saying, he's inventing this in his head, like the scientific
condition,
result,
temporal lobe epilepsy, which causes hallucinations. So the doctor is definitely suspect of this.
So we have the first case where the regressive treatment is being used to tout why it really happened, and the doctor is sort of signing on and saying, yeah, this really happened. And then the same treatment is used in this second situation. The doctor's saying, no, these things didn't happen, but yet we still believe them. So I don't know. It's like two different results, the same treatment, two different results. The doctor's saying two different things, and both of them being treated as whatever, either they happened or they didn't.
I know you were saying earlier on that you're bringing in the skeptical side of things, John, which is what we need. You need that balance. It can't just suddenly just be presented with these stories and go, yeah, that's real. There has to be questions brought up. But I am curious on the flip side of that, whether, generally speaking, all round, do you think that this phenomena could be real?
Well, yeah, of course.
Yeah.
I think anything can be real. I mean, I'm 100% of a, I don't know, optimist and a dreamer, I mean, that's who I am. So yeah, I leave open the possibility for everything being real,
I think it's wise to be open-minded, because just like you can't prove everything, you also can't disprove everything. So you have to kind of look at it in that way.
Yeah, I agree.
And I definitely believe, in extraterrestrial life. To me, it seems illogical for there not to be any.
Well, yeah, and what is it? It doesn't. What does it serve me or serve us to say it doesn't exist? I mean,
Exactly.
If you tell your brain something doesn't exist, it stops looking for it, right? I mean, I would much rather live a life. I'd rather be delusional and reaching out into the world and into the universe and to try to see what's there than to just sort of be sitting here on this rock and deciding that nothing that's right in front of me can be real. I don't know. That doesn't seem like a good existence, or very scientific, frankly.
Or even in our galaxy, these days, guys, they're discovering new Earth-like planets all the time.
Yeah.
Within our reach, as it were, within our solar system.
Yeah, and
that could easily support, life like us, which is quite staggering when you think about it.
I mean, to Jake's point, I mean, just mathematically, how can there not be life in other places?
I mean, whether the life has come here and started abducting people, that's another question. But the fact that,
that's right. That is another question.
Yeah.
But
I mean.
But then again, if they were advanced enough to cross such distances and arrive here, they would probably. There's a possibility that they're advanced enough to cover their tracks if they don't want us to know that they're observing us. So there's that.
Yeah, I mean, if you have like an ant farm or whatever, I'm sure it's all very mystical to those ants as to how the hell we're doing what we're doing.
They're completely oblivious to our world. They're focused on their own little ant world.
Exactly.
So and they have no idea. There's ant farm videos on YouTube, and they're really interesting.
Oh yeah, we had one when the kids were small, and then it was awful. The native ants, outside the apartment, came in and attacked the ant farm and just obliterated our ant farm. That was quite a little life lesson for the children. It was
full-scale invasion. Jeez.
Yeah, it was a full-scale invasion. They just sort of streamed in and went into the ant farm and just took over, killed them.
Another thing they were saying that these aliens, whether they come here or travel light years to come and see us and abduct us, or whether they're interdimensional, or another theory is that they are walking among us and we don't realize it.
Yeah, that kind of goes more back to Jake's point about interdimensionality. Yeah, I wouldn't disbelieve that at all. Why not? Wasn't it? There was a whole movie about that in the 70s where you could put on these glasses and see which people were the aliens, and they had this skull face.
That's the film I was recommending to Jake actually to watch. Stay Here. Jake, you remember? Yeah. John Carpenter movie.
Totally.
Brilliant movie.
Yeah.
And even if you take away the alien angle of it, John, it's very much reflecting of our times, because when he puts the glasses on, it says consume, don't ask questions, sleep, all these commands that really are quite reflective of society in many ways.
Sure.
It's quite scary in that sense. consumerism and all this sort of thing. Do what you're told. Do this, do that. Sleep. Don't question things. All that. And I found that fascinating how they did that. But putting it with like an alien angle.
To quote the great Shepard Fairey, obey.
Yeah, that's it. That's one of the words that keeps showing up everywhere when he puts his specs on. Obey, obey. It's written all over the buildings, on the newspapers.
I think it's what he's alluding to, what you're talking about.
Yeah. It's pretty scary stuff,
Well, but you know what? It's scary and it's not, because the way I look at it is that we're not supposed to coast, we're supposed to be struggling, and in order, because this life or this thing where, whatever it is that we're doing, in order for it to be important, it has to be hard, right? It has to be, in order for something to be hard, as our existence gets a lot easier in a lot of ways, it's sort of, we start to get sort of, complacent and so, I think this sort of Orwellian kind of stuff that you're talking about just makes you have to kind of dig deeper and appreciate the, mental and physical freedoms that you have, and what's important, and to love and to be loved, and, these sort of things that start to fall by the wayside as we're looking at our phones and, watching TVs and whatever, and on the internet all the time. And I mean, as those things start to kind of take us away, and Amazon and whatever, we start to lose the tether to those.
John,
did you hear that?
No, I think you muted yourself, John. Yeah, we missed it.
A phone call came in. It was so loud to me. I was wondering if you could hear it.
Oh no,
anyway.
But yeah, excellent point.
Oh, thanks.
But another thing I find is, in modern society, since the advent of the internet boom and all this technology we have to hand now for want of a better word, communication. I use that very loosely, by the way. We have lost sight of the old traditional ways of like actually talking to one another, physically, or on the phone, or on a video link like this, or whatever, And now everyone's, as you said, John, walking around in a trance almost, with their heads stuck to the phones, or with earbuds in their ears, earphones in, and isolating themselves from society, just shutting themselves away. And I find it very, in my mind, very troubling.
Yeah. Well, it's quite brilliant, but it's quite brilliant though. Really, it's sort of like, it's almost supernatural, or not supernatural, but like divine or something, that something could be created that at the very same time is connecting everybody, and at an equal rate, or even accelerated rate, is separating everybody. That same thing could be doing those two things at the same time. There's something quite impressive about that. And my reaction is not to be afraid of it, but to say, lest I become a zombie, and lest I become sort of, what did the Borg do? They assimilated or whatever, right? Lest I become that, I must now double down and do the things that you're talking about, talk to people and listen to people. And, it just makes that stuff all the more important.
It's all about just creating a balance and making it work.
It's done a wonderful. It has to, as I say, don't get me. I'm not being completely cynical or anything, but it does.
I didn't take it that way.
It has its good points. We're talking together now. This, technology brought us together. Had it not been for that, we never would have met. So it's got very good points to it.
Yeah, it's about.
At the same time, there's this downside of it where people don't want to communicate because they've got all these other means of communication, like texting and messaging and everything like that. It's all just typed words, which can be misconstrued for a start because you can't see the emotion behind it or hear it, and that's the trouble. That's the thing I find hard to swallow with it.
Well, it also sort of presents as an opportunity to be more powerful than you feel, and so it presents itself as a way for you to, go on Twitter or whatever and sort of have a voice that you don't really feel like you have inside. And so you kind of get out there and say things and do things or whatever where you're, that make you feel important. And all the while, you potentially, not necessarily, but you're potentially losing track of the things that, really are important to you. So, like, how's your mom doing? And are you a good friend to your friends? Can they count on you? And
Yeah.
what kind of a parent are you? And
and having a good conversation, having a proper good conversation, and being able to comfortable to talk about anything to one another. Things like that's really important to me. I really do like to talk. I'm a chatter. Sometimes it's a nervous energy that I need to get out. Other times I really do crave, to talk to another human being. As should be all right, but it's become less and less important in many ways because everyone's distracted by other things so much with technology.
Well, it's not that it's less important. It's just the other thing is just louder.
Yeah.
So it's not less important. And, it's always going to be that way. The things that are important, that's why everybody thinks David Lynch is a weirdo, right? Is because, he represents something that's different than the status quo. The status quo is always going to have the floor, they're always going to have the majority. It's always going to be 90% crap, and 10% David Lynch, right?
Yeah.
That's just the way it's supposed to be that way. That's what makes David Lynch so important. That's what makes him so special. Absolutely. Is because of those numbers, I think. So that's what makes, to your point, Frank, that's what makes a conversation where people are listening to each other and exploring ideas and feel safe to, disagree with each other. And that's what makes that so precious and so important as it becomes sort of, as society at large sort of starts to dilute that and dissipate that and block against that. It makes it all the more important.
Yeah, adds value.
Yeah, I agree on that, John. Yeah. But let's say it's very much a split thing, isn't it? As you said, John, earlier on, the very thing that brings us together can also pull us apart.
It does.
It's quite strange. It's a very strange thing, isn't it? Yeah.
It's fucking magical. It's like it's mind blowing.
It is. It is. Yeah.
But I don't fear it. I don't because because here we are talking. This is I put my stock in this kind of thing.
At the end of the day, I just see it as it's something that needs to be balanced and used responsibly.
That's right.
With everything in life, too much of one thing is bad. It's all about balancing things, not gravitating towards extremes.
That's right.
Yeah, not letting it take you over too much. Yeah.
Yeah, and sometimes you don't know what the extreme is until you've gone too far, right? And then you can come back from it. But if it wasn't there for you to go to, how are you going to have that? So do not be afraid. Everything will be okay.
Things will iron themselves.
Thanks, mate.
In their own time.
Thanks for that.
That's right. Because here we are. Just remember this. That's the other thing that we do. We tend to give more space in our head for the stuff we're afraid of and for the negative things than we do for the positive things. We remember the asshole that cut us off and somehow don't remember the 15 people that waved to us and smiled, That's what we're up against. We're up against that. I just almost think neurologically, the way that we're built, and again, back to my point that I'm keep banging home is that I think it's supposed to be that way in order to make that person that, in order to make those positive things be important, is that you have to fight through all of that negative stuff.
And that's really a beautiful thing about conversation. It's just being demonstrated right here, John, at the moment, and Jake, that the fact that we've gone from our topic for the show about alien abduction, and we've gone into the pros and cons of the internet and communication. It just shows you can pretty much bounce off anywhere, and that's what I like about, being able to talk like that,
Well, and God bless you for creating this forum, Frank. I appreciate it.
Oh, you're very welcome. And it's lovely to be able to connect, and it's, I think, and as I say, I think it's a vital thing for a human being, for one human being to another, to connect to each other, to not isolate yourself from one another or society. Human interaction is so crucial to us, I think, for us to grow and learn. And we all need that. We all need a hug, if nothing else.
Yeah, exactly.
Every now and again,
We're hardwired for it. It's
yeah. We just need that. We need that human touch. We need that human interaction. I think without it, it's. Well, I dread to think. Really, you know?
Well, and I don't know about you, but for me, it's not my first choice. You know, it's something I have to overcome in order to even do it. You know, to even leave the house is not my first choice, and to go interact with people is not my first choice. But I know that once I'm there, and you know what I mean, because so much of it is not enjoyable, right?
Yeah,
Is
I know what you
that
mean.
you know what I mean?
Yeah, you can be in awkward social situations where they aren't the kind of people you're just not connecting with, and it can be very uncomfortable, you know?
Yeah.
We are
But
sometimes thrust in situations that we're not comfortable with, but, you know.
But like you just said a minute ago, I mean, that's really well put. That you just remind yourself. You just remind yourself that that once you get out, because that's what I'm like manually overriding. I'm going, no, once you get to this place, you will find somebody. They will be interesting to you. You will maybe be interesting. You will make a connection. You always do. It's going to be good. I have to like talk myself through it to go do it because it's important.
I mean, I have this problem I tackle all the time. I'm going to be brutally honest with you both here. I mean, there's no reason why I shouldn't be. And most friends know my situation that listen to this anyway. But I have the problem every day, John and Jake, with battling depression and anxiety on top of other things, you know. And so therefore I have that problem of leaving the house every day, you know, for whatever I have to do, whether it be going down to the shop or paying a bill, or whether it be you know, rare occasions where I actually have to meet people. And many times I've had to cancel it because at the last minute I just could not do it because of my anxiety. And, you know, I feel like I'm letting people down, but most people understand what's behind that and are pretty understanding. But it does make me feel rotten to not be able to go to things that I was very much looking forward to going to. So it's an everyday battle there for me, you know.
Yeah, no, I've battled the same thing. I can completely relate. I feel that I'm exactly the same way, you know. But here I am, whatever, an actor who's on television. Sometimes it doesn't really make any sense when you look at it from the outside. But my day-to-day existence is exactly like that. It's the same. In fact, I was just talking to my acupuncturist this morning. That's a very Hollywood thing to say. And I was talking about, like, I was like, what if I posited, what if like depression and anxiety and these things are not even real? What if they're just presenting as real? Because I pointed out, I said, look, I can be like absolutely in a depression and I'm never going to work again. And the whole world's crushing in around me. And then the agent calls and goes, hey, you got that job. And all of a sudden I'm as fucking happy as a clam, right? Like it's just like a switch gets flipped. And so my point to her being, well, if I can just practice replacing that, you know, if I just make the effort to replace that feeling with the positive feeling, all of a sudden it's gone. So in my mind, it's like, well, is it even there really in the first place if I can just put something else there and that thing becomes the thing, you know? Do you know what I'm saying? I don't know if that makes sense or not, but
the action thing, John, actually comes into plays a big role in it for me, because when I'm in this kind of state, I have to kind of mask it for the benefit of the people I'm in the company with and act a wee bit. I have to put
that's all we're ever doing
to get through the night, because you know, I'm sitting there sometimes thinking, I don't want to be here. I want to jump through a window and get out. You know? That's
what I'm thinking. Absolutely, fucking every time I'm out. I went and saw my friend's band play the other night, and like I'm looking at my watch. I'm literally sitting there enjoying my friend's music, supporting her. She's got an album coming out. It's in this little club, and every song I'm just thinking, I cannot wait to get out of here. And so that's when I'm doing something fun. You know.
And the thing is, though, it's not the company that's doing it to me. I'm very happy being with them. It's just this feeling of wanting to get away. You just have this thing that overcomes you, and you have to escape.
Since sort of whatever, scientifically or whatever, since I know that an outside element can come in and change it, you know, my example being whatever, the job coming through. Since I know that is capable of not just changing it, but replacing it, having it just disappear. You know, here's another, like, I don't claim to know anything, but I'll just give you some whatever examples. Like if I'm feeling shitty if I look up and look at a tree, I feel better. I'm not saying I'm cured and I will not, and everything's glorious and I'm dancing in the street all of a sudden, but I'm just saying a weight is lifted while I'm looking at the tree. I'm looking at trees right now, and the wind is blowing and they're green and they're beautiful. And I would be hard pressed to feel bad while I'm doing that.
Yep.
It would be difficult for me to feel that anxiety and feel that depression for the length of time that I'm looking at these trees. That's kind of my point. And I turned my head right now, 30 degrees, and I looked at those trees. I'm able to do that. And it may seem when you're in that group of people that you have to mask and you have to whatever, but what if you don't? What if when you're in that place and you're with those people and you just turn your head and look at a tree? What if you just fucking do that and you don't worry about what it is that they're going to think of you or whatever?
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of my life is like that. Is like, I have enough trouble keeping track of myself. I can't keep track of other people. I can't keep track.
That's true. I mean, it's hard enough maintaining your own, self-preservation. But, sorry, Jake, go on.
No, I'm just agreeing. I totally.
Yeah. But the thing is, though, John, it's all linked with neurosis. It's all linked with, like, we worry too much when we're ill like this, when we've got these conditions like depression, anxiety. So therefore we worry about 101 different things in our head before we even go out the door, Well,
but if you can like drink a beer or like, smoke some pot, or if there are actual physical chemical things that you can do to yourself to adjust that or mask it or buffer it or change it or whatever, then my point is whether that thing is real or not is almost irrelevant if there are things that you can do about it. And of course it might be hard, but I'm just saying there's some path there. If it's as easy for me as to looking at a tree, and I know that's may sound Pollyanna or something, and I'm not saying it's the solution, but I think that it's a path toward the solution. There's something there. There's something about the fact that I can turn and look at those trees blowing and feel better. And furthermore, to my point, not feel bad, like it can replace that anxiety for the length of time. As long as I'm staring at that tree, my depression's gone and my anxiety's gone. And if I could just spend the next week just looking at the tree, I mean, maybe that's what those fucking Zen masters do. They just go up on the top of the mountain and just fucking look at whatever, and maybe there's a reason for that, right?
I agree. I think nature, being around nature is a great leveler in any way. But I think more so when you're in a kind of bad state at the time.
So my point is that it's if it can be replaced, then really the quest is to learn how to replace those things. It's not that it's easy. It's not easy. It's really hard. But to look for those paths and look for those, I don't want to say panaceas, but look for those things that can replace that. Because I'm telling you, Frank, it's the nature of my existence. Is that everything that you said, I relate to it 100%. I'm just like that. I'm the same way. So
it's really horrible though. But because I don't go out that often, John. You would go out a lot more than I would, simply because of the nature.
But I have to. I wouldn't go out if I didn't have to.
I know.
If my kid didn't need to get picked up from school, I wouldn't go out. If things didn't happen, I wouldn't do them.
Yeah, I understand. But my situation from a social point of view, from going out socially and planning something out to meeting people in London and so on, where I've met Jake several times as well and stuff like that. We've hung out and just to be around people you enjoy being with, which at the time I'm really, really excited about. I'm hyper happy in the preliminaries. And when it comes to the time of it coming round, this thing just clams up inside me and I can't leave the house. I just cannot get there. And it's really, really a horrible feeling.
Well, so maybe I relate to it. Maybe in that moment, I'm just hypothetically saying you're really excited. You're going to go out, you're going to go see Jake. And then right at the last minute, you clam up and you can't leave the house. Well, maybe you let go of the idea of seeing Jake. And in that moment, you just say, I'm going to look at a tree right now. Instead of having it be that the goal of going to see Jake is too big to deal with, just do a much smaller goal. Maybe the goal is right now is I'm simply going to level myself out. I'm going to look at a tree, or I'm going to do something else that I can do right now in this moment, in this space, that will alleviate a little bit of my anxiety. And that's going to be enough. It'll just be enough that I alleviate a little bit of anxiety right now. And if once you're in that place, you can add a little bit more to it. And then maybe eventually you go out and see Jake, and maybe you say, Jake, it's not going to happen today. But like, just let go of the idea of results and think more in terms of, what can I do to level myself right now,
Yeah, I mean, sometimes I've achieved it, sometimes I haven't. It's been pretty hit and miss, to be honest.
Because I mean, once you start letting in all those feelings of like, oh, Jake's going to be disappointed, and the fucking, these people are counting on me, and what do people think of me, and they all think I'm crazy. And once all that shit gets in there, it's like a Trojan horse. That shit just gets in there, and then it just starts like a bull in a china shop. Just
starts eating away even more at you. Yeah.
Eating away at everything. That's exactly right.
All the guilt comes in, self-guilt, self.
That's right.
Loading, doubt, the whole lot, all that,
So you just close the door on that shit, and you look at a tree.
Yeah, that's it. I think we all need to look at trees more, John. I think that's the moral of the story.
I feel
a tree.
I feel heard today.
And at your mic.
Yeah, he's gone again. He's back. He's back. Yeah. Oh dear.
You back, John?
Oh, my phone is like going crazy. I'm gonna have to bow out soon here.
That was hilarious. It's like you were like, I feel heard today, and all of a sudden your mic stopped.
You said, I feel hurt today. Hurt. I thought you said.
You know what? It's bigger than us, Jake. The whole thing is much bigger than us. That's for sure.
Well,
all right. Well, listen, it's really good.
We are coming to an end anyway, guys. We've only got a couple of minutes left, and we've had a lovely chat here. So I'm really grateful to both of you, and thank you just for allowing me to open up a bit here. I don't normally do that, but not on air anyway. So I'm very glad I was able to talk to you both like that.
These safe places are precious, aren't they, Frank?
Yeah.
They're very precious.
I mean, others are going to hear this. So I'm not cutting this out, by the way, because I think this is very important to people. And the reason I say that is because a lot of people I know are going through the same sort of thing, John, as you and I. And I think it's important that they hear this as well.
Sure.
I'm saying it might not be the right platform. I mean, we're talking, it's World of Strange predominantly, but I think every now and again, I think you do need to express these things. And as you did, Jake, that time when you opened up about your dad, do you remember that's when you were doing that story? That was very open. That was very honest. And I know that a lot of people out there that we all know are going through very similar battles, John. You'd be surprised how many.
I know more than
there are a lot more than you think, and
going through that shit,
Yeah, an awful lot. I'm sure you're exposed to it as well, Jake. You see it as well,
And I certainly have my dark days.
Oh God, yeah.
It's a lot more of it in my industry, certainly. Then
it's very prominent. It's much more prominent than people let on. Really, I think that's the other thing. The stigma is that people. Well, we'll wrap this up now, guys. We'll talk about this another time. But I want to thank you, John Pirruccello and Jake Wardle and Lisa Coronado for joining me. Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Frank.
And we'll see you all again in another World of Strange, of course. Until then, guys, sleep tight.